Ready. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing for Retirement podcast. Today, our guest is Dick Kellett. Dick is a seasoned investor who enjoys investing in notes and subject to deals. And he also has a vast knowledge in land trusts. So, we're going to talk about those today. But also, too, we have my wonderful wife, Misty, with me. We've been able to get her on here so she'll be able to kind of jump in and ask some questions, share some knowledge as well. But let's talk to Dick. Let's get into it and, find out how Dick got started in real estate investing and hear Dick's story. So, Dick, I'm going to let you take it away. How'd you get started and tell us about yourself?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say thanks for inviting me today, Chris. I don't know if I can help you or not, but we'll certainly try.
Yeah, let's do it.
I started about 22 years ago. I was watching a infomercial at 3 a.m. in the morning.
That seems to be the case with a lot of the guys that started that age. I'm not joking you, right?
And,
Yes.
and I think I was about 55 at the time. And prior to that, I had no concept and no desire to have any tenants whatsoever.
Right.
And something struck me that night, and it was two little midget brothers who were doing the thing for Ron LeGrand.
I know those guys.
You know those guys.
I'll tell you, I didn't know who they were because 20 years ago I was in my teens, but was it teens? Yeah, I was in my teens. I was like 16, but I remember seeing those guys at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
they were stomping for Ron LeGrand, and I bought his $49 package, and I bought 2 houses with that. And next thing I did, I signed up for a 4-day conference with him in Houston.
What, those houses you bought, were they rentals or were they?
They were for me. They were subject to deals.
Okay.
And I went to his 4-day seminar in Houston, and one of the things about his little package that he sent me was that the paperwork was very poor.
Yeah.
Not poor in quality, just poor in expanse. There wasn't enough paperwork to do the deals, or just barely. So while I was at the seminar, there was a guy there who was trying to sell his wares, and his name was Lou Brown. And he had a set of documents called, I think he called it the Enchilada Junior at the time.
So he has the whole enchilada, right?
I spilled a few enchiladas on the paperwork before, but I never knew why it was called the whole enchilada or the Enchilada Junior. Anyway, I bought his paperwork, and I have used it ever since, and it is fantastic. Now, I didn't get hooked up with Lou really until much later, probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
So was Lou? Let me ask this: was Lou like a sponsor of Ron LeGrand?
Lou was a vendor at that
Yeah.
conference. But when I looked at his paperwork, it was wonderful, and there was lots of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had it segmented into 5 little binders. Buying, selling, and holding. Negotiations, land trust, personal property trust, and I can't remember what the last one was, but there were 5 of them. And I took those home with me and have enjoyed them ever since.
Yeah.
Especially some of the documents concerning the trust.
Yeah.
The trust is a document that most local attorneys, if you ask them for one, they'll give you a land trust, but it's a boilerplate off the internet. It probably doesn't cover what you need it to cover.
Right.
This one of Lou's has been worked on for 40 years and has been improved over that time, and it works very well.
Yeah. Let me ask you. So it's funny because like the same thing you said, how you got started. You're like, it's 3 a.m. And we've heard this numerous times as we've, done different interviews. What did you do before, and what made you go, man, let me try that? Like, what was it that kind of sparked it? Because if you didn't do real estate before, and you said you were 55, so and that's another point too. A lot of people might think, well, I'm too late to start. I'm 55. Time's passed. I just I think my dad was like that. He's like, oh, I'm just getting older. I'm not
Too
gonna.
late to start a new career.
Yeah. What made you go? Let me do that.
Well, I've never looked at life that way. I'm just going to keep going until I die,
Yeah.
till I can't go anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, I was 55, and yes, I was moving on up there, but I didn't see any roadblocks to stop me from doing what they were talking about.
Right.
So I just did it,
Yeah.
and have been happy with it ever since.
What was intriguing about it? Like, I guess, like, cause what did you do before? Like career wise, what was it that?
Well, I still had the career, and I kept
Okay.
on for several more years.
Gotcha.
I was in the medical field,
Okay.
and one thing I didn't like about the medical field was the call. And that's getting up in the middle of the night to go in and do some surgery.
Gotcha.
And I hated to get out of bed and do that.
Yeah.
So I was looking for something else that would supplement that. And that night I found it.
Yeah. So that was that change. So you're like, man, I'm tired of the grind of being in the medical field, getting up at all hours of the night.
I liked the medical field when it was scheduled.
Gotcha.
I enjoyed that, but
Yeah.
the call was what got me.
Yeah. And that was so for you becoming an investor, that was that next step. It's the next stage of life.
Yes.
It goes through stages, right? I mean, you're, at this age, you're, a certain age of kids. Next thing is this and that, different stages. So for you, that was the next stage or step, going to the next stage, saying, hey, I'm going to move on and become an investor and
Right.
work to slowly leave that behind.
Actually, I looked at it as a part-time adjunct to my bank account.
Okay.
So I wasn't contemplating leaving the medical field at the time.
Okay.
I just wanted to add to it. So I did that, and I probably in the first 2 or 3 years, I had amassed about 40 different properties,
Oh, wow.
all subject to.
Man, that's
All subject to. And at that time, subject to was fairly easy to do. And there were lots of them out there.
mhm.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah, it's changed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
changed.
totally different, especially. So I guess I'm going to assume when 2007, 2008 hit, it was fantastic. Or no, or was it easier? That's this question. Like, was it easier when you first started than when like the mortgage crisis and everything hit, or was it harder as that mortgage crisis started to hit? Things changed. What was different from when you started to then?
I missed that crunch.
Did
I
you?
slept right through it.
Oh man.
Well,
We
I
were just-
had all these properties, and I was working those properties and keeping them going, and
Yeah.
I just didn't realize there was anything else going on out there. It never affected me because they were all rentals and people needed a place to live.
Yeah.
So I just rented them out and just kept going. And I will say that for about 10 to 12 years in there, I got really complacent about finding new properties.
Gotcha.
And I just sat back and worked with my old properties and sold them off on occasion. And then
Mhm.
as the market got better and better, it was more fun selling them off.
Yeah. I can see that though. I can see someone getting to a point, especially like that, getting complacent, just comfortable. Right?
Yeah,
You
I
get,
was
you get comfortable.
I was
Like-
very comfortable with what I had, and I was still busy with my medical practice, and I didn't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
At least in my mind, anyway.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. That's not. But you said 40 subject to deals. What, 2 to 3 years?
Yeah.
When you first started. That's a hustle.
Uh-huh.
That's a grind. That's awesome. So let's kind of unpack that a little bit, because I'm sure some that listen, they're going to go, I know what subject to is. And others may go, I have no idea what that is. So in a nutshell, how would you explain a subject to deal? Like, what is that?
A subject to deal is a situation where the seller is in bad need of selling his property for one reason or another, and there are many of them. Most of the time, it's foreclosure,
Mhm.
but there are other reasons also. And what you do is you come in there and you don't take over their loan, but you do service their loan from then on. So, for instance, if Mr. Seller is 4 months behind on his mortgage,
Right.
and his mortgage company's threatening to foreclose on him, or they have already given him notice of foreclosure, he's got a short time to do something. And basically, what he's got a short time to do is lose his house.
Yeah.
So I step in and I said, "Look, I'll catch you up. I'll bring you current on your mortgage, and I'll take over the payments, and you're going to sign the deed over to me, and you're going to move." Right. Basically, that's what it entails. And let's say he had an $800 a month house payment, and he was 4 months behind. Well, I've got to kick in $3,200. As soon as he signs the deed, I send that check off to the mortgage company and bring that loan current.
Okay.
And then I service it every month after that.
Yeah. So so you basically get the upside because you're basically getting it for what the loan is. And,
Correct.
So for someone who isn't familiar with it, you're getting that. Let's say the house is worth 200,000, but they owe 100,000 on the property, and you take over the payments, you catch them up, and then essentially you get not only now you get the upside, so you might walk in with 100,000, just round numbers of equity that you
That is
have
correct.
that you can either turn around and sell the entire property to someone, just clean out, sell it, or what you typically would do is going to be different, right? You're not going to sell it outright. You would
No.
actually keep the property.
I kept them all as buy and holds and turned them into rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, today's market, I would have done it differently because having all those renters calling me all the time and all hours of the night.
So did you manage your own stuff
They're
at
going
that
to
time?
interrupt your infomercials.
Sure.
Yeah. You're like, hey, it's 3:00.
Yeah. What I would do today is I would turn those properties into notes.
Okay.
All right. And I would sell them that property, and they would pay me. I would be their bank.
Right.
Now, the underlying loan I would still have to pay,
Mm-hmm.
and I would still continue doing that. But I'm going to increase the price of the house. Let's say the value of the house is actually $200,000.
Right.
So I may sell it for $215,000, and the interest rate is 6%. So I'm going to change that to 8%.
Right.
So I'm going to get the arbitrage between both the price and the interest rate.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing that you have to be careful of when you do that is to make sure that what they're paying you is going to cover what you have to pay to the mortgage company. Otherwise, it's a bad deal.
You got to find someone else to subject to for you.
That's right.
You're like, hey, I need help. I need some help there. So when you get the arbitrage on that. So you're, and you're also raising the price. If it's valued at 200, you do 215 because obviously you're dealing with someone who they wouldn't be coming to you if they could go to the bank, right?
That's exactly right. They have tried to get loans, and the bank has turned them down for whatever reason. Maybe their credit's bad. Maybe their debt-to-income ratio is bad. Something is not well in their financial picture. Bank says no. They could be as much as just self-employed.
Yeah.
And the banks won't touch you.
Yeah. What was the most common that you came across as you talk to different individuals, and what's one of the most common situations that someone who is saying, yeah, let's do the subject to deal, I'll sell to you, Dick. What's the most common thing you come across? Like,
They were heading for foreclosure.
But I'm saying reason, like, I guess, or let me take that back. The most common person you're selling to is what I would say. So that when I say like self-employed, is it, customer wise, who'd you find? Was it someone self-employed? Like, what was it that you found that was the most?
Their reason for doing the subject to?
No. Their reason to sell,
to purchase.
There we go. Thank you. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're talking about
Customer,
the other side.
The other side. Yeah. Who did you usually
Well,
find?
they
Like
were
second chance.
they
Usually.
were the same people that could not get loans.
Yeah.
All right. And I said, all right, I can't get you a loan, but I will be your banker
Mm-hmm.
for this amount of money and this interest rate. and you can move in right away.
Okay.
All right. So you don't have to go through all that stuff. Now, I'm going to check these people out just as much as the bank will, because I don't want to set anybody up for failure.
Right.
So if they can't make the payments, I don't want to do business with them.
You're still pulling credit and that kind of stuff.
I'm still pulling credit. I'm checking on their, making sure they're making their payments to whoever they owe.
Yeah.
If they're doing that, then I feel fairly confident that they can continue on.
Right.
And I make sure they're making enough income to meet the payments too.
Right. So employment verification, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What kind of down payment did you usually require?
I usually required at least 10%, but I never told them that.
Yeah.
Said, how much money do you have to put down?
Hmm.
And on a $200,000 house, a 10% down is $20,000. But sometimes they sit back and say, well, I got $41,000 to put down. Will that work? I said, okay, we can make that work.
Let me ask my partner.
Yeah. I got to take this back to the board now.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Let me think about that.
So on the subject to, did you ever have to pay anybody for some of their equity?
No, I have not. And what I've basically said to them is, look, you are within 21 days of going to the auction. And when the auction comes up, they're going to sell your property. You're going to get absolutely nothing. They're going to make you move out. If you fight them, they're going to have the sheriff come put you out. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to get you out of this? Because I can stop the foreclosure right now.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them said yes.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
So what was let me ask you this. What was maybe one of your best subject to deals you ever did?
One of the best subject to deals I ever did was a husband and wife who lived in Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
They had a relatively new house. It was about 2 years old. It was worth $180,000, and they owed $178,900 on it. So there was no equity in it whatsoever. But they needed to get to Seattle right away, and they didn't want to make the next payment. So I said, all right, we'll fix you up. You're not behind on your payments, so I'll make the next payment for you. You sign the property over to me and take off to Seattle, which they did. I walked into the house, and I saw that the carpet needed cleaning, and I needed to get a bucket of paint, a gallon of paint, to do some touch-up on the walls. So that house cost me $360.
Man, $360 is it?
$360.
Do you still have that note at all, or do you?
No, I have since sold it. When I bought the property, it was at the top of the market, so 180 was the best I could do on it. So I just rented it, and I rented it for 3 years. Made my payments along, and something else happened during that time was that the properties appreciated. So when I sold it for $35,000 cash in my pocket.
$380, right?
Cost me $380.
That's crazy.
That was the best deal.
That's awesome. So what I always got to ask, because I mean, I know Misty and I have our worst deal, and I know every investor does, because everybody talks about, what's the best deal? What's the best deal? But what's the one that maybe sticks out and you're like, it was the worst deal? And worst doesn't mean it was a disaster, but it wasn't your best deal.
The worst deal, I think, was not a bad deal, because it turned out all right, and I sold the house and I made money on it. But the deal was that the lady that I bought it from was meddlesome, and she would call the mortgage company and say, "Hey, this is not right and this is not right." Well, I had volumes of paperwork which she signed, she was explained to,
Mm-hmm.
and every time she come up with something, I would pull out my paperwork, copy it, highlight it, and send it back to her, and she would shut up for a couple of days.
Yeah. So she just makes the process harder.
She was just making the process difficult. Well, the worst part of that deal was that when I sold the house, there was about $2,200 left in escrow. Now, you understand the mortgage company knows that I'm paying the payments, but she's on the note.
Right.
So they sent that $2,200 to her.
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever see it? No. No.
So she just caused a problem, and then she also got an extra $2,200
Yeah.
out of the deal. Yeah.
And she didn't pay it either. I did, because
Yeah.
I had that property for several years.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, it's never, unless you have like someone has a disaster property, it's usually something like that where it's,
Yeah,
if you learn
it's
something
usually the
from it.
seller who has been explained the process over and over again. And I explained it to them 3 times, and they signed in my paperwork at least 3 times that this is what's going to happen. And they still forget it.
Yeah.
Or they're obstinate and they don't want to know it.
Yeah.
They want to cause problems. And she just seemed like that kind of person.
Yeah. Just causing issues. So what was, what would you say is your most, and it might be one of those, most memorable deal? The one that, like, it just sticks out in your head. You're like, that deal was great. It may not necessarily your best, but just, made the most money. But what's one that sticks out in your head the most that maybe you think about sometimes? You're like, man, I remember that deal.
I've had other properties that I made more money on, but the one that cost me $360 was
That's the one.
was most memorable.
That would be 2 for me. I'd be like best and memorable. It gets 2 awards. So, so subject to is something that it's. I know when we started, I didn't know anything about it. I remember I read a book, and there was a certain book that I had read, and it was "Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich?" which I know you know who Bill Barnett is. And I didn't know anything at the time. I just, oh my God, you can get a house for free. So it's nice knowing someone like yourself who, like, you've been through that. You've gone, you know what to do. You've done plenty of subject to deals, and I know that's what what you stick to. What would you say as far as like finding those deals? Like, what, and not saying you got to lay out your marketing plan, but what's one of the things that, like, Misty and I like to send letters. Like, that's just kind of what we enjoy doing. It works for us. What's something that worked for you in the past that you just, like, not a silver bullet, but that you like to do to find those kind of deals?
There is a list that comes out, and there's some people over in Dallas, Plano, I think it is, that compile the list.
Mm-hmm.
And you can compile it yourself by going down to the courthouse and looking on the clipboard that's up in the hallway there that says this house is going to foreclosure on such and such a date.
Yeah.
Right. Well, having seen lists that were $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 houses on that list,
Mm-hmm.
Spread all over the county, that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So if you buy that list, you can go through that list and compile what you want. All right. If it's a high dollar house and you don't want that, scratch it off. If it's a low dollar house and you don't want that, scratch it off. Get in the area that you want, price wise. Get in the area that you want house wise. For instance, you don't want anything but brick on slab, 322s. That's all you're going to look at.
Yeah.
And then I compiled that list for myself. And what I found best was that I used to do the same thing. I would send out letters. But as it changed from back in the 22 years ago when it was fairly easy to find these people, now when you go to these people, they've got a stack of letters a mile high that other people have sent them to do the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Your competition's greater.
My competition has increased considerably. So my favorite way to do that is to find the houses that I really want and go knock on the door.
Gotcha.
And talk to them.
Yeah.
If you can do that, they associate you as a real person, where with the letter, they just see the letter, and if they're interested, they'll call. I just kind of get in their face and say, look, I know you're going to foreclosure, and I can stop that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just go from there.
Yeah. And just knock on the door. Because a lot of times they're in denial, right?
Oh,
Sometimes
absolutely,
you've got to,
absolutely.
not the river. You've got to get
I've
them.
had I've had many people who were in such denial. The sheriff came and put them out on the street, and then they realized that, hey, I'm evicted.
Yeah, that's crazy. So they're just, you're having to talk them in, not talk them in, but try to bring them around to, hey, like this is really happening.
Yeah, this is going to happen to you.
Mhm.
You're going to go to the courthouse steps. You're not going to have anything to do with it. The county is going to set you out of your house, or not the county, but the mortgage company is going to set you out of your house.
Yeah.
And you're going to be homeless.
Yeah.
Now, you can do something about that now. Also, it's going to get on your credit report for at least 7 years and maybe longer. So it's not going to be favorable to you.
Right.
And then I just tell them, I can stop that.
Yeah.
I can get that part of your credit back running and working good, and that's up to you. Now, realize they also have credit cards that they're probably late on, car payments that they're late on. I can't do anything about that. And if they don't want to change, I'm not involved in that, but I am in their house.
Right. You can, it's that adage, or the saying, the more people you help, the more money you make. So you're helping them. It's not you're not getting a steal of it. I mean, you're getting a deal, but you're actually assisting them with making sure that, their credit's going to at least be saved, to whatever.
I'm improving their credit
Right.
as it pertains to the house.
Right.
Because that's a big monkey on their back.
Yeah.
One of the things that has happened over the years is that these people, after a couple, 3, 5 years, they're not in the same situation they were when they lost their house,
Mm-hmm.
when they sold it to me. And they're wanting to buy a new house. Well, they've got this old house still on their credit report. And basically what I have done is I've had them tell their lender, their new lender,
Mm-hmm.
to give me a call, and I send them copies of all the payments that have been made from day one.
Gotcha.
So they know that property is being taken care of.
And that allows them that the lender will say, hey, okay, you guys are good.
At the very best, they will give them full credit for that. At the very worst, they'll give them about 75% credit.
Gotcha.
So they get a lot of that monkey off their back.
So let me ask you this, and I know we've had these discussions and you've talked about it before, but for everybody that's listening, calling the note, that is a question that anybody who ever hears subject to, that's like the first thing they might think of is, how is it even possible? Or, are they going to call the note, because so explain that, kind of get an idea of like why the lender would not call, why it's advantageous for the lender to not call the note and why it usually doesn't happen.
Well, there's a couple of things. There's a federal depository law of 1982, Garn-St. Germain.
Mm-hmm.
And in that law, they gave the right to the mortgage companies to call the loan due whenever that property changed hands. Now, it didn't say they gave them the obligation to, it just said they gave them the right to. So, mortgage companies don't like to own houses.
Right.
They don't like to do foreclosures because that takes away from their money that they can lend out. And then they've got to foreclose, and that costs them money. So if they can get away from that, they do.
Mm-hmm.
So what I have done to stop that and not stop it, it's the mortgage companies knows that it goes on, but there is an exception in that law that says if you put your property into a trust for estate planning purposes, they can't call a loan due.
Right.
So what we do is we fill out a trust, which essentially is made by the seller.
Mm-hmm.
And I use my trustee and my address, and maybe I shouldn't tell you all this.
Hey, man.
Because it's out there for the world now, but they know it goes on.
delete.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
got to hit them with that neuralizer, the Men in Black.
Yeah.
After they listen to this podcast, they just, look into your,
Take your wife and get her
look into
get
your
her a new
phone.
dress and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
look into your phone screen. We'll hit you with a neuralizer.
Yeah. So anyway, that is a legal remedy to block them from calling the note due.
Right.
Now, they can still do it,
Mhm.
and but they don't want to.
Right.
They really don't want to, unless you get somebody who's got a wild hair and says, "I'm going to call that loan due for
Yeah.
whatever reason."
You get the new rookie in the lending
You get
division.
the new
It's
rookie,
like,
and he wants
I
to make
got-
a name.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
you. And the old guy's like, man, stop, dude. Just don't mess with those people. Like,
But here's the thing: their banking rules state that if they foreclose on a property, let's say it's a $200,000 property, they've got to take $600,000 out of their lending pool until they correct that
Non-performing.
non-performing loan.
that's less money they get to put back into the system.
That's
and,
correct.
And so for them to foreclose, it actually costs them even more
It does.
to go through it because they can't.
Cost them the foreclosure, and the federal banking laws say you can't use that money. Even though you've got it, you can't use it.
Yeah, it's stuck. So now that instead of
They're
Now
missing
it's-
out on interest.
all day, right?
Yeah.
All day. Yeah, they've got. What was that saying we heard? We were told that banks have high interest. You remember that? They have high interest in your house, and you're way. You're supposed to know this one, Misty. They have high fees and high interest in your house. I don't remember. Anyhow, so the subject. So when it comes to, you're basically putting in a trust, and that's what stops that foreclosure.
It is a land trust.
It's land
yes.
trust, and that's what stops the foreclosure or stops them from calling the note
Correct.
because you've done that. So, it's funny. People hear this. Someone who hears this for the first time is going to go, "I'm going to go do some subject to deals." Like I'm sure someone's going to be like, "Oh my God, I can get a free house." But I find it interesting that you mentioned like there's a lot more competition nowadays, right? Like
Absolutely.
like the amount of people that go get the same lists, and do you find that's like the most different thing now from when you started 20 years ago? Is just the amount of competition that
Yes.
changed the
The
landscape?
process is the same. It
Yeah.
hasn't changed at all. But
The laws have stayed the same. Everything has stayed the same,
Yeah.
even through the mortgage crisis. All of it just stayed.
1982 is the law that says the bank can call the loan due if they wish.
Right.
Doesn't say they have to.
But they
It says if they wish.
Have you ever, not necessarily on yourself, but have you ever known anyone that has actually had it called due?
I
know.
do not. I have had 2 mortgage companies call me
Mhm.
and asked me if I bought the house, and I said yes. And I basically just told them, I said, you do what you have to do, but I've been making payments on this thing to you for 3 years now,
Right.
and you can keep receiving those payments, or you can foreclose. Your choice.
Right.
Right. Now, that's pretty bravado on my part, because if they decide to call the loan due, then I have to go out and find some money to pay them off.
Yeah. If you got that rookie lender who's like,
Yeah.
I got you, Dick. I'm coming.
And by the way, that rookie lender, this guy calls me on a Saturday morning
Mhm.
and says, "Did you buy this house?" And I said, "Yes." He is the lowest man on the totem pole.
Right.
Right? He has probably no power whatsoever other than to tell his boss that this is going on. Well,
Yeah.
they usually forget it by the time they hang up the phone.
Yeah. He's running to his boss's office with the paperwork, like,
Yeah.
look what I got. Look what I got. And the boss is like, close the door. We don't need
And
that.
the boss says, "Are they making their payments?" Yes. Leave them alone.
Right.
Leave them alone. And
Yeah.
those 2 houses, I had those houses maybe 8 years after I got those phone calls.
Yeah. So nothing.
Nothing.
They
Never
don't
bothered
even
me
care.
again.
They don't even care.
They do care.
But they
What they cared about was getting their payments every
yes,
month.
Yeah. They don't care to foreclose on you.
Right.
So
And I will tell you this, if you miss payments, they will consider calling the loan due.
Right.
So make your payments on time, make them fully, and you won't have to worry.
Yeah. So I got there's a fun memory that Misty and that I love that I have, just knowing you and getting to know you. And I got a story I want to tell, and I want to and kind of give me your thought process on this. I remember when we first met, you handed me a card and it says Sarah buys houses. And I was like, and then me and Misty went home. This is, we went home and it was like, what was his name? And they go, okay, Dick, and then we're like, but who's Sarah? And we never said anything. And then one day I was like, hey, Dick, who's Sarah? And your response to me was, I don't know. So, and then we went into it and you talked about why you put, Sarah buys houses on some of your cards and things like that. And I know we use Misty, don't use me. So who's Sarah? Why do you, kind of explain what's your thought process on
Sellers
that?
usually will talk to a female
Right.
quicker than they will a male.
Yeah.
So I just picked that name out. My wife and ex-wife didn't want me to use their name,
Gotcha.
so I just picked up Sarah.
Yeah. Sarah.
Good, good biblical name.
I thought it was so funny. I literally was expecting a totally different answer. Like, that's my wife. That's my daughter. That's my assistant, my partner. And then you're like, I don't know who Sarah is.
And when they call up and say, can I speak to Sarah? Well, she's not in right now. Can I help you?
It's funny is like all of the stuff we send out, it has Misty up front, but
Uh-huh.
I'm always the talker.
Sure.
Always the talker. And even though it says, Misty and, myself, me and my husband would like to, purchase your house, whatever, sincerely Misty Story. It's never her. Like you do talk to some, but for the most part, when she gets hung up on, it's me calling back, if that's the case, because we've had those. So that was so funny. I'll never forget that. You're like, I don't know who Sarah is. It was that.
There's another thing that trust will do for you. A couple of things that primarily are of interest to me. One is keeps your name out of the courthouse. So the ownership of that property is not you.
Right.
So Chris Story will not be in the public records owning a property. And that's important, especially if you have lots of equity in that property.
Right.
Because there are unscrupulous people out there who will go after you. And if they can find you, they can make your life miserable, absolutely miserable. But if the name of the property owner is the XYZ Trust, and it's a post office box or a UPS box, FedEx, or any of those kind of places, it's difficult for them to find you.
Right. It's interesting. You mentioned that. What comes to mind is we have a client that a property management client. I'm not going to disclose name or anything, but when we first met the client, they actually were telling us about how, and they own a lot of property. They own tons and tons of property. They've been in the business for a very, very long time. And they were telling us how their own lawyer, like they did everything that you just talked about, but their own lawyer sued them and just completely wrecked them. And that individual had to rebuild. And I remember that discussion because he said had that not happened, he was marking on getting up to I think it was 10 million worth of property value. So he was getting up there, and then almost got cleaned out because of his own lawyer, who he'd been using for a while, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Had to rebuild.
Had to rebuild. So not to scare anybody out there, don't use a lawyer, but just saying, but just saying like he did all the right things, and it's just important. It is important to protect yourself. Now obviously that lawyer knew, how to pierce the veil, but you're right. There are individuals out there who are not that savvy, but they may come find you.
Mm-hmm.
So having your name, we like to do the same thing. Keep my name out of public records if really possible.
Correct.
So yeah, but that that comes to mind. Just thinking like, man, you know, even and they even that that individual was, I mean, protected as far as they knew. So that's crazy. But the weird, darndest things happen, man.
I was perusing the Dallas County tax records one time, and I saw one individual who had 32 properties, and they were all in his own name.
That's scary.
Now, I didn't know what kind of equity he had in any of them, but I know this man needed some help because he was a target. If somebody ever found that, he was a target.
Yep.
Yeah.
The wrong
And,
person found
and
it.
not only do they get one property, get them all,
Correct.
Right.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that trust gives you that anonymity
Exactly.
as well. And it also makes for easy transfer too, right? Upon passing and all that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's another thing. The second major advantage of a trust is that you bypass probate court.
Right.
Because in the trust, if you want this property to go to your long lost uncle or your son or your daughter or whoever you want it to go to, it's right there in the document. And as soon as you pass, your trustee just transfers that that property to them.
Yeah. It's just simple. Not have to worry
Just-
about anything.
No,
Doing it that
it's
way.
just a $20 fee at the courthouse.
And then done.
Uh-huh.
So when talk strategy a little bit. So have you ever come across any subject to deals that maybe they weren't foreclosure, maybe it was divorce or that kind of stuff, or just an unwanted house, or was it usually what you came across was foreclosure? Like that was the main
Well,
thing.
I did most of my searching for foreclosures, but like the house I told you about, that was my favorite. That was not a foreclosure.
Yeah.
They weren't behind at all. They just needed to be elsewhere
Right.
now.
Yeah.
So we facilitated that for them. They took off. We owned the house and went from there.
Yeah. So are there any strategies that you maybe wish you would have known back then that you know now, 20 years, just looking back? Is there anything you would do different looking back from, 20 years of your experience?
I probably wouldn't have sat on my laurels for so much,
Yeah.
for so long a time.
You wouldn't have slept through the
I
mortgage
wouldn't have
crisis.
slept through it.
So, that kind of leads to an interesting question because we are in a, right now, just at this time of recording, we're in high inflation and things like that. Do you feel what you've seen over the years, 20 years, I mean, that's a lot of experience. And so what you've seen over the years, do you feel that maybe I don't want to say we're in a bubble, but what do you think's around the corner? Do you feel like maybe we are going to end up in a situation where we'll see some more foreclosures, or we'll see, because right now it's a huge seller's market. What do you envision yourself?
It depends on the banks. Now, a lot of these government regulated hands off, for instance, moratoriums
Mm-hmm.
for foreclosure, or what's the other one? The loan modifications, things like that.
Right.
Those are all drying up now. They're going away. Now it's up to the banks to decide what they're going to do with it. Now they have the power, if you will, to go out there and foreclose on every one of those properties. Is it to their benefit to do that? Probably no. But they can. So they may take a portion of them and do that with it. And the best thing that they can do, I think, probably is to do a loan modification. And the forbearance agreements are basically set up so that if they forbear 6 months payments, when you're due to come back and start your payments again, they want that 6 months right now.
Mm-hmm.
Most people can't do that.
Right.
Most people cannot do that. So their best avenue is to rework the loan, put those 6 payments on the end of the note and start again.
Or maybe the seller's best avenue is to call Dick.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Just call Dick. No. Numbers 817. That's the seller's best avenue. Don't. I'll take care of the 6 months. Don't
Yeah.
worry about all that.
That's true. I will.
Yeah.
Now, why would you do that? All right. Subject to is a way to purchase a house legally for a lot less money than you would have to otherwise.
Right.
For instance, let's say there's a $200,000 house and there's still $180,000 owed on it. For you to complete a transaction like that, you're going to have to come up with $180,000 cash, give it to the seller, and then you will own the house.
Mm-hmm.
But with a subject to, you only have to come up with however much they're behind. You know, let's say it's $5,000 or $10,000 to bring the loan current with the mortgage company. Then you take over the loan and you own the house.
Right.
Don't own the loan, but you do own the house.
I think that's something too that people forget or they don't understand. I know that blew my mind when I first realized that those items are separate.
Yes.
The mortgage and the deed are two different items. They do not go hand in hand. Most people think, oh, the bank owns my house.
Yeah.
But the bank doesn't own the house. You own the house. Bank just has a lien on it.
Right.
And if you don't pay it, they get to own it, but they don't want to. Right. So, yeah. The 20 years is a great amount of experience. So you feel like at some point the pin will drop. At some point we're going to end up in a situation where maybe not necessarily a lot of foreclosures or something, but it'll have to turn around.
I think we're going to see some bad times coming up.
Yeah.
Now, how bad they are, I don't know. But things are not going to be able to stay the same as they have been over the last 10 years without some changes. Now, are we going to have a recession? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to have a depression? I hope not.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm just a little old real estate man sitting there.
The word recession for any real estate investor is the ringing of a cash register.
Yeah.
Like cha-ching, like you're waiting on it, right? We're hoping. We don't want to wish bad times on anybody. We don't want someone to fall on hard times, but we're there to help when it happens.
There are many, many, many people out there who are experts in the field. They can't even get it right.
Right.
They can't even get it right. So I'm not going to say that I can predict this or predict that.
Yeah.
I know things will change, and I'll change with them.
Yep. Yeah. It's just giving that opinion. I think at some point the pin will drop eventually. How or what it looks like.
We've heard that for the last 5 years now, but it still hasn't dropped.
Yeah, I know. Even with 2020, I mean, I swear, murder. It's going to be murder hornets and some zombies. Zombies is probably next, but
well,
I don't know when that will be.
My biggest fear is that the government's going to get so overbearing that we will have a civil war.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can see some of that. I can see that being an issue as well.
And I certainly hope that never happens, but there's a possibility out there because there's enough of us gun-toting Americans who don't want to put up with this crap forever.
It'll be Texas versus everybody, right?
Texas versus everybody. There you go.
Texas versus everyone. So let me do this. I'm going to do some quick questions with you. Just kind of run through top of mind, as kind of quick answers. I'm going to give you 4 quick questions. So first one is, what is the best lesson you've learned through all of your experience in real estate?
Real estate is the absolutely best place to put your money. There are other avenues for investment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but real estate is probably the best and the most forgiving.
Yep. So what is the best real estate investing book that you've ever read? Or even a program?
The best book that I've read is not specific about real estate, but it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
And it is a great basic primer on investing.
Get you started.
Gets you started.
Get the mindset. So,
And there are many great books about investing out there. That's just the one that I would start with.
yeah, that's where I got started. I was
Yep.
16 years old. I introduced to that. I'll never forget that. Riding around in a car with my jujitsu instructor, and he turned it on, and he's like, "Listen to this." And I'm thinking to myself, "What am I listening to?" And now, here we are, many years later. We have a podcast. So question number 3, what is your secret to real estate investing success? What would be your secret to success?
Continue taking action,
Yep.
right or wrong,
No matter what.
no matter what. Keep taking action. You're going to make mistakes. But like I said, the real estate business is very forgiving.
Right.
And you can make a mistake and still make money.
Yep.
Or you can make a stupid mistake and lose it,
Yeah,
whichever you prefer. But if you make that one mistake and lose money, you probably won't do it again.
Yeah. So question number 4, what is one of your favorite phrases or mantras that you live by? Something you maybe say all the time, that you live by.
Stay focused.
Stay focused.
Stay focused.
You tell yourself that a lot.
Yeah. Whatever you think you want to do, if you have a particular roadmap set out for yourself, stay focused on that.
I like that. Stay focused. I tell myself all the time, Misty will tell you, discipline, discipline,
Yeah.
discipline,
Mhm.
discipline, like in my own head over and over.
It's another way of saying the same thing.
Yeah. It's in your head like over and over and over.
Yeah.
I got to share this. One of my favorite ones one of my favorite mantras that I tell my own kids is, Misty laughs at this, but stupid games get you stupid prizes.
Yeah.
That one tickles me pink because I would make my kids do something wrong. That's a mantra for me. It's like, hey, they do something, and I'm like, stupid games get you what? Stupid prizes, Dad. Puts them in that mindset of, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. But yeah, little mantra. So stay focused. That's yours. So
Now, whether they understand that or whether it clicks in their brain, it may take another 15 to 20 years, but
but when it does, they're
you've
gonna
planted the seed.
That's right. When it does, they're gonna look at their own kids. They're gonna be like, stupid games get you stupid prizes. That's awesome. So stay focused. That's your one. So let me ask, what advice would you give to a new real estate investor? I know that you work with a lot of new people that come into the DFWRI club. You volunteer at the DFWRI club as well. What's someone who comes in, what advice do you like to give to someone who's new and just getting started?
Most of the people that I see coming in say they want to wholesale because wholesaling is a way to make money without ever actually owning the property. All right, you get your money and you're gone. But there are so many different types of deals out there that, yes, learn wholesaling, but learn the others too. Learn how to fix and flip. Learn how to wholesale. Learn how to subject to. Learn how to work probates. Learn how to do all of those processes. You don't have to do them, but understand the process.
Right.
So that if you find a situation that comes up, let's take it for instance. Chris calls me and says, "I've got to sell my house. I'm getting ready to get foreclosed on. I need $190,000. Can you pay me that?" Well, if I don't know about subject to, I'm probably going to tell him no.
Yeah,
I can't help you. But if I know about subject to, and I talk to Chris about it, and he's interested, then yes, I can help him.
Right. Learning all aspects.
So learning the aspects of the others. And here's the thing: join a club, real estate club like the DFWREI club, and you have all the members there to help you.
Right.
And we do. All you have to do is call and ask the question. If I can't answer it for you, I'll send you to somebody who can.
Yep.
Now, if you call me and ask me a probate question, I'm going to send you to somebody else.
Right.
All right? Because I don't do probates.
Yeah.
I know about it, but I don't do them. So I'll send you to somebody else who does those.
Hmm.
And in every other aspect too. We are there to help. We're not there to do your business for you, but we can help you do your business.
You're a resource. Yeah. And then if especially at the club, if you go to the DFW REI club, Dick's one of the first person aside from Robin, Dick and Cindy, Dick's one of the first people you meet. One of the first people we met. And, everyone's really welcoming. I know you help a lot of the new people that come in.
I like to come up and say howdy.
Yep.
And give you my card.
Yep. That's right.
Call me if you need me.
And
Or
the card,
Sarah.
yes.
Yeah.
Sarah will be on the card.
Yes. Sarah has taken a trip. I don't know where Sarah is now.
No.
She's no longer on
She
my
just
card.
doesn't answer the phone anymore.
Yeah.
It's Janice now.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Well, Dick, we loved having you on, man. It's man, great stories. You always have great stories. Give us an idea of, kind of if anybody wants to connect with you, where they can meet you, or if they want to learn more about Sub2, or meet you at the club, not the club, but meet you at the DFWI club. If you want to give out any contact information, or just how to reach out to you.
Well, you can meet me at the dfwreiclub.com.
Yep.
We have a meeting every Saturday morning from 9 o'clock until about noon. And I'm usually there. I've been kind of out of picture for the last 3 weeks. I was in Branson, Missouri, looking at day rentals.
I was about to say, you about to buy some vacation property, Dick? What's
No, I'm
going
not.
on?
No, I have a friend who does that, and she has some. And I went up there. Actually, I gave her a ride up there.
Yeah.
I went fishing. She went to the meeting.
Tell me how it goes.
Well, one of the ladies that we have met, and you all have probably heard of her, I don't know if you've met her, is Robin Thompson.
I've heard. I haven't actually got to meet Robin.
Robin is a very smart and capable lady who has coined herself as the queen of rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she did for many, many, many years. And she's made a fortune at it. Just a few years ago, she got into the vacation rentals.
Okay.
All right. Now, she has bought 6 very nice houses up in Branson, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
When we were up there with her a couple of weeks ago, she is going whole hog. All right, there is a place called Branson Canyon, and it already has a bunch of vacation homes in it that are very nice. They're probably $800,000 to $900,000 homes. All right, and they are used as rentals. Well, there was a phase 2, which was another 75 acres, which never got started. She bought that, lock, stock, and barrel, phase 2. She bought the HOA. This week, she started on her first $10 million homes that are going on that property.
Wow.
And these are vacation rentals.
Did she buy the Snell's property from Ozark? Or no, has you watched Ozark?
No.
You get. It's a phenomenal show. If you guys haven't, if you're listening, you haven't watched Ozark, you got to go to Netflix and watch it. So. You might run it. Sounds like you guys might have run into Marty Bird and a few other people up there. So.
No, we didn't. We missed them.
You don't want to meet them.
They were out killing pigs.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Everybody that meets with Marty Bird is about to die. So. Well, that's cool, man. So they can catch you at the DFWRI Club on Saturdays.
Or you can call me at any time at 817-915-0122.
Yep.
Now, if it's after 10 o'clock, I may not answer.
Yeah.
10 p.m.
Yeah, 10 p.m. is the cutoff. Well, Dick, we appreciate you coming on. I know I learned some things as well from you today, and of course, love hearing the stories. It's great to hear how you got started. 20 years of investing is a long time. That's a long time. I was a teenager at that time, and to hear those stories and kind of how things changed. And of course, it's funny to hear how you got started because I remember those midgets. I remember those midgets. So, But we appreciate you coming on. And man, I'd love to have you on another time. Come and join in with us again. But as far as podcast everything, guys, if you guys want to continue the conversation and you like to, if you're not a part of the Facebook group right now for the real estate investing for retirement, log on to Facebook, jump into our group. We'd love to have you in there, ask questions. If you guys, if you want to know more about Subject 2, Dick is the man. He knows a lot. And we appreciate having you on, Dick, and look forward to next time.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, you guys have a good one. We'll catch y'all next time.